All right, so here we are on Sailing Views, and I have Chris and Marissa Neely. They have sailing vessel Avocet, and they are in California. So, welcome to the channel, guys. How are y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing pretty good.
Doing good. We're wrapping up boat projects left and right, so that's
Yeah.
always a really good feeling.
Finally putting our boat
Finally.
away.
Yeah. Well, I know I've been watching videos of you guys for months, and just watching the progress y'all been doing is just amazing.
Thanks.
Between fiberglass and the rail, redoing the tow rail. Obviously, y'all been rewiring stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all been doing a lot.
Been busy. Yeah.
Yeah, your rudder rebuild. It's been everything. It's been a complete rebuild. So before we dig in too far, even though I'm already throwing everything out there, let's tell everybody on my side what y'all do and what y'all are. Who are you guys?
Oh boy. Okay, so we are Chris and Marissa, like you already said. We're 22 years old. We live aboard Avocet, which is a 1979 Choily 41. She's been our floating home for the past two and a half years.
Yeah, almost 2.5. Yep.
Almost 3 years now. It's been our floating home for 3 years. We live aboard with our cat Cleo, and we're preparing to sail around the world. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. We've taken on a lot of projects, and we'll get into those a little bit later. But basically, that's us. And
yeah, I'm a cinematographer, so I do a lot of camera work, and that funds part of the journey. And also, Marissa is a digital marketer.
Yeah, so we're a good team. We like to work together to create little documentary type style videos that we can look back on later in life, and pretty much just document how far we've come.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, great. I know I've been watching your YouTube channel for a while, and with the cinematography background and then your background in media and marketing, that's like the perfect power couple for YouTube. So I'm just waiting for you guys to completely blow up and be the big dogs.
Yeah, we're actually right now we're less than 500 subscribers from 10,000. Yeah. So we're about to hit the 10,000 milestone, and we're blown away. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's been really good.
It's crazy.
I don't even have I barely have over 200, so I'm hoping this little boost will help. So you guys share me out a little bit.
There.
But yeah, so let's talk about your boat. How did you find it? What was the reason you got it? What?
Yeah, so we were
on that boat.
We were kind of into sailing for a while. I had grown up on a Mason 43, so I knew how big boats, how a good, well-made big boat should feel, and how they should not only feel on the inside, but also how they should sail. Marissa didn't have any sort of sailing experience at all. The first time she actually stepped on foot on a sailboat to actually sail it, we went on a regatta. She came on a regatta with me. We did a whole entire race together.
Chris actually suckered me into doing this regatta with him. Yeah. We were 16, and he's like, "I don't have any crew this weekend. Do you want to do it with me?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. It'll be romantic. It'll be fun." No, we learned so much about communication on a boat that weekend. I didn't know what a line was. He's like, grab the line, trim the sail. I'm like, what are you saying? So we learned a lot.
That's how I sucker all my first dates in too. So, okay.
Yes. So we learned a lot there. It took a while for me to get over healing, because in my head I thought it was, the same as flip over and drown. Yeah. So Chris was able to explain that to me. It was a process. Over time, I became more comfortable sailing, and then we visited Chris's brother in Costa Rica because his brother also lives on a sailboat. That's SV Prism, which is a pretty well-known YouTube sailing channel as well. And we visited John there, and that was my first real experience.
Back in 2016, we visited them in Costa Rica, and that was really both of our, real-world experience going cruising, per se, and we fell in love with it. We were on a 33-foot boat with 6 people, but
six grown adults,
and we were sleeping on top of their salon table. Yeah. But again, it was awesome.
It was great. It was a really cool thing to experience, and by that time, I had enough sailing knowledge to feel comfortable. I obviously wasn't comfortable enough to helm by myself, but I was comfortable with being in that situation, and I grew a lot from that. And then when we came back to our normal land life, we were still in college, and we were
kind of looking for like the next step. And the next step for me, I was thinking I was going to go to San Francisco to go to school. And at the time, we were looking at a boat just for the reason of it being cheaper than getting an actual apartment in the bay. So yeah, we started looking into Catalinas and that kind of range of boats. Our price range really wasn't very much.
We were just two college kids. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but we were thinking about Catalinas because, you know, they're well-made production boats. If something breaks, you're able to fix it really quick. We were essentially just looking for a crash pad, and we weren't sure what we wanted to do.
And sailing would have been fun in the meantime.
Yeah,
too.
Sailing would have been a fun thing to do, and we were on Craigslist daily. We were on Yacht World, Sailboats R Us, every single website trying to find the perfect Catalina 36. We finally found one in Southern California. Drove 7 hours from Tahoe.
A long time with my brother, actually.
Yeah, 7 or 8 hours from Tahoe. Got on board a Catalina 36 and took about 5 minutes. Chris and I both looked at each other because the owner was right there. So you can't say, man, I don't like this. But kind of had that look, the understanding of,
it wasn't that we didn't really like it, is that we just couldn't really think that this was going to be a livable situation for us. Like on those boats, you know, underneath the settees where there could be storage, there's tanks everywhere. And like where you go to a cupboard on the side of the boat, the hole is like, you know, that close away. So
which is fine. A lot of people live on Catalina 36s,
but we have a lot of stuff.
They make they make a home out of it. But we do have a lot of stuff, and we have our cat Cleo, so it just wasn't the right fit for us. And we were totally crushed after dreaming about this boat for a long time. But John was able to quickly pull us out of that depression, because I think he recognized it, because I'm sure that happened with them when they were looking for their boat. He's like, okay, guys, it's okay. There's a boat across the way. Let's go check it out. It was Avocet. And we went across the way to the next marina, got on board this boat. I hated it right away because it had butterfly tables. That was the first thing I saw. And it was just a different layout. We have a big horseshoe-shaped dinette up front, and we have a U-shaped galley kind of in the middle of the boat, perpendicular to the head. So it was funky. It was different than the Mason 43 and Hans Christian, which were the two
different
boats.
from most boats that we know in this kind of, you know, realm of boats.
So I didn't like it at first. Chris was into like looking under all of the little storage places. He's like, just think about it. I'm like, I can't.
Well, I walked down too, and this boat it's very similar to like Mason, where it has all teak interior. She's built like a tank. You can just feel it when you walk on. The whole boat doesn't move. You know what I mean? She weighs so much. So I was very at home, I should say. And long story short, we ended up, you know, putting a bid in, very low bid, with a letter to the owner. It was like, hey, this is our idea. And at this point, with this caliber of a boat, we were like, our ideas were changing. It wasn't more or less a crash pad anymore. It was like, oh, this is a boat we could actually go cruising and live on a long time. So
and Chris's brother's girlfriend, Shannon, who's also sailing around the world, she actually told us, all right, guys, are you looking for a crash pad or a home? And that's something that stuck with me. I'm like, all right, I want to have a home. I want something we can grow in. And Avocet was definitely that. And I quickly grew to love her and all of her uniqueness. And we've really made her ours. So that's how we found her. And rest is kind of history.
That's the story. All right, so that's how you found the boat. Catalina 36. You know, I grew up when I was 5 or 6. My parents had I guess I was 6. My parents bought a Catalina 30, and I grew up bebopping around that boat. So I mean, I know Catalinas pretty well, and you know, a 36 is a good boat when you're young, but when you get older and you start collecting stuff, there's not enough room. You know, it's an overnight boat. It's not a long-term boat, at least not to me anyway. And
props to those who can do it. I'm so impressed by the people who live by Lynn and Larry parties, all go now. That is impressive, and we're not worthy.
You're too many clothes.
Yeah.
That's tiny house living and at the extreme to me, and I can't do it. You know. All right, so let's move on to all right, we've covered how you met, your first date. We've covered your boat. Let's talk a little more about your boat and some of the projects you've done. Like I know in the beginning we mentioned fiberglassing the tow rail, adding what did you call it on your video?
Yeah, so I mean, when we bought the boat, she needed a lot of love. It's been at least the haul out, at least for the bottom, hadn't been done in 15 years. So the bottom was really tired.
Yeah.
With
Really,
a
really tired. The blade of paint.
Yeah.
So like when
There's
when we actually pulled it out for the survey, there just really wasn't much paint left. It was just like, wow, okay, there's a hole.
Yeah.
So anyways, there was a lot of good things about this boat though that I knew from previous experience. I didn't want to do these jobs like removing the teak decks. That was already done, so that was like a huge plus. The spar was replaced with aluminum mast back in 2004, so that was another huge plus.
Yeah.
So big things like that where I didn't want to deal with a wood mast, I didn't want to deal with wood decks. Those were done.
The electronics were relatively new.
Yeah, they actually, like the GPS and the speed and the depth, all those were nice Raymarine stuff. It actually came with an SSB and a Pactor modem. The diesel is a very, it's a genuine article, Perkins 4108. I know how to work on them very well, especially after owning this boat. But again, it had very good bones, but there was problems. So like the tow rail was one of the first things I actually noticed on the boat was right where the tow rail met the actual deck it was just cracking all the way up the deck. And I looked at it, I was like, that doesn't look good. And, I didn't really know what I was looking at, but that was like literally the first thing I saw.
First rainstorm, it all made sense why it smelled so musky inside.
There's water running in right there.
So there's now to find out there's 186 or something holes that was holding the old tow rail down.
Yeah.
And I would say 80% of those holes didn't have any caulking left and water was just coming straight through. So,
but when we first got the boat, that was a project we're like, we're going to have to deal with this way later down the line. So we just did a bead of TDS along the side. It sealed up. It was a great Band-Aid for 1.5 years, almost 2 years until we were able to take it off in the boatyard and do the whole deck to hole joint reseal, which was a really big project.
And I have a lot of inspiration from well-known sailors like Lynn and Larry Pardee. A big reason that we took off our tow rail and we're not putting another one back down is because of their idea of using bulwarks and not actually through bolting a piece of wood through the deck. Yeah. So our bulwarks are going to be looking like a tow rail with a piece of wood on the side of the boat, but they're actually going to be attached to where every stanchion base is with a bulwark base. So that way there's no through bolts at all on the deck. The whole actually piece of wood is about a half an inch off the deck, so water just goes straight off the boat. So that was a really big project when we were out. Another one was at the rudder. The packing gland back there and the bushing looked like it came out of the Titanic. So that was another big thing. It was like one of those things like, well, we should take it out because we're here. So
might as well.
So we dropped the rudder and completely redid all the bushings, the packing gland. I mean,
finally painted the lazarettes that we had neglected because all of our stuff lived in there. We did a lot of projects. We did
a full osmosis treatment on the bottom, so we popped probably a few hundred blisters.
I lost count. I tried to count them all, and I lost count. I was so tired of circling them. And
we brought the whole bottom down to bare glass and let it dry out for 2 months. Yeah. And that way, when we actually did our barrier coat, we were only down. I think we were at like 19%. Moisture in the hull, which is pretty good. When we did it, it was pegged at about 99%. So it was just really, really wet. So that was good to get that done. We had a compromised ballast. Water was actually into our ballast. That was a huge problem. We were popping a blister and it just kept getting more and more wet. And all of a sudden just, tons of water came out. And,
it was a big hole. It was about this big. In our keel, and that was pretty scary, but luckily it wasn't as scary as we thought.
On paper we have iron ballast.
Ballast, but we were thinking it rusted, we're screwed.
It's gone.
It's done.
Sell it now, run away. But luckily, Chris, after 2 days of just pure terror and scaring me because I'm thinking we're never sailing around the world. That's not happening. Yeah. Chris was like, oh yeah, we can take a magnet to it, and if it doesn't stick,
it's not
iron. So we did that, and then the magnet didn't stick at all, no matter what.
I also cut out a pretty sized chunk in our hull and was able to literally gouge, things into the metal down there. So I knew it wasn't stainless, or what wasn't iron.
So it's lead.
So we got lead. There you go.
Yeah.
Fun things you figure out.
Despite what Choily says, they still think that we have iron. So I need to find more information about our boat and be like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know.
Well, I was reading something from Bob Perry, who did a lot of work for Choi Lee and a lot of other boats over there. And the boat market was so busy back in that day. They were cranking out boats, and they'd run out of something, so they'd go with something else. And boats were being custom made, kind of semi-production, semi-one-off, and it was like a Wild West of boat building back then. So you don't know what the heck you get, you know.
Especially with the Choi Lee 41. So we don't have an offshore 41 or a Pedrick 41. It is the Choi Lee 41, and it's a CL 41 because they didn't want to pay the royalty taxes to the designers. So we have a very unique boat, and I think there's only 80 holes. We still haven't figured it out. So I've yet to find another one that looks just like ours, and now there never will be because we've done so much custom work to it.
Yeah, our boat's pretty specific. We have a sloop rig, and most of these toilies were made as catches.
Yeah.
So another really unique thing about our boat. So
Yeah.
back on projects, we did a really big overhaul on our engine, took it all the way down to the head gasket. That was our first project, I would say, probably on this boat. And the head, we completely ripped it out. That was a big thing for us.
Completely remodeled it.
Yeah, you can go
remodeled the whole design of it. So one thing we really wanted when we were looking for a boat was a dedicated shower stall, which is what Chris's brother on the Hans Christian 33 and Chris's mom on the Mason 43 both have. It's just so convenient to be able to hang foulies up when they're wet in a shower stall, just to have all the water in there and not have to wipe everything down after you're done showering. However, with boats, there are compromises, and Avocet did not have a shower stall. She had a wet head, which I hated, and we never even used because it didn't work. It was a bright white room. It looked like an insane asylum, and the rest of the boat is beautiful teak. And you go into the head, and it's just bright white with this white light, and it didn't look good, and the stains were all there. So we ripped it out. We remodeled everything. We put the head and the sink on the same side so we can hang a shower curtain just so that stays out of the way. And now it kind of has a shower stall with the shower curtain acting as a barrier, which is really nice. And we
just couldn't fit logistically. Come to find out, when you actually put measurements to pencil to paper, it's a very small little area. Our head, it's tiny, really.
Yeah.
So I could have put a partition in there, but her and I both looked at it, and we would have been like showering.
We tried
like
everything.
That. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
We tried so hard. It's not for lack of trying, but we made it work. We painted it a nice eggshell white instead of crazy blinding white. And we added tile, which was a really cool project. We used.
That was actually from John's Mason or Hans Christian. He has tile on his boat, and that was something that her and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
It's really, it's really pretty, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, tile's going to crack because the hole flexes," but it's held for 2 years.
Yeah. Behind that, we put a pretty serious amount of glass behind it, and like 1708, and really tabbed everything in, and then I actually mounted all the tiles with epoxy instead of cement. So
because epoxy flexes a little bit more than contact cement. So
and that should hold. Like if y'all go somewhere and you're pounding off waves, because it's not going to be necessarily, you'll have some boat flex, but it's going to be that shock load that pops it all. So
it's always surprising when people comment stuff like that on our YouTube videos. It's like, actually, we thought about it. I appreciate where you're going, but we thought about it.
We'll see after our crossing to Alaska if things are still holding together.
Yeah.
See if I'm still holding together.
Yeah, the temperature change is going to be something, because I'm used to, I'm from Alabama, and I live in the Gulf Coast and sail in the Gulf of Mexico, and most of my sailing trips have been anywhere from Baltimore to the Caribbean, so, just always in relatively warm weather. I've seen cold weather really once, and I was leaving Baltimore and having to break ice to get out of the harbor just to get a boat down in the islands. Yeah. But everything I've done is in warm weather. So y'all are going the opposite way. Y'all are going to Alaska. Now, I know y'all are going to go look at glaciers and check everything out while it's still here. What other things are you trying to get prepared for? What are y'all doing to get, the boat ready for the cold weather?
Well, we recently installed a diesel heater, which has been fantastic, besides it melting my shoes that one time. Trial and error. It's been a learning curve, but the diesel heater is great because it's dry heat, and it keeps it warm, and it dries out all of the mold, the musk, the mildew, and it's really efficient and great. So that's one big thing we've done.
Any power and barely any diesel, really. It's quite amazing how efficient it is. It's a forced air unit. is nice. So
it's fantastic. We turn it on and it heats up the whole cabin in less than 5 minutes, and we're like, it's true.
pretty, no, in an hour, I would say the whole cabin is up in
The
temperature.
parts that count. We have one directly. We have one vent directly in our room. So I mean,
that gets toasty if you
that
want
gets
to.
freaking warm. Yeah. And as mentioned, the unit lives inside my closet because I do have a pretty big locker in it. I mean, it's huge. People are very surprised. Like, you have all of that? I'm like, yes.
Enough for her and I both to get inside of it, actually, and working there together.
Yeah, but the unit lives in there, and all of the ducting, and that's what melted my shoes. Chris actually just replaced that this week.
We have flexible ducting, and I didn't like it. It was not as efficient as I liked it to be, and it also radiated heat a lot more than I thought it would. So I actually installed rigid PVC in there, which it seems to do a lot better job. You know, so.
Yeah. So heat is one big thing.
We've done a little bit too with insulation on the boat. Our whole boat is not the whole boat, but the deck and the cabin top are cord, so there's a lot more insulation than if you didn't have any of that.
It's with mahogany too, right?
With mahogany.
Very dense.
Insane how thick our decks are. But anyways, I'm actually going to go in. That's why most of the headliner's down right now, is that we're going to get some more insulation and put it up before the headliner goes back up.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we're going to do to combat the cold and the dew inside the boat, because we have noticed it gets. I mean, it is what it is. It's like living inside of an oil can. Condensation is a big deal. So if we can try to get rid of that as much as possible, then that's what we're going to do. But
also,
sorry.
Warm clothes.
And warm clothes.
Warm clothes.
Just
And what? You broke up.
Structurally, too, our deck whole joint was a really big deal for sailing to Alaska and Hawaii, even just any crossing in general.
Just dealing with like the Bering Sea was one of those things.
Yeah.
Our tow rail was it was a structural tow rail, so it held together for the most part our deck the whole joint. And now after seeing Choily fasten the stainless steel through bolts with bronze nuts on the end, most of them. Marissa's actually the one that took all of them off, but
it was rough.
I probably 80% or 90% of them broke right off right at the deck. So
I think we still have.
We have some of them around that were just. It's amazing how I think I actually cleaned up, honey.
No,
I had a Merritt 25 a long time ago, and the deck is plywood cord. So I ended up recoring it, and after recoring little sections for years, we finally decided to just rip the deck off. It was the same thing. We had to pull off hundreds and hundreds of bolts and built a jig, flipped the deck over, but half of those whole deck joint little bolts just snapped, and it's surprising how much load I guess there is on them, and they just weaken them up so much. But similar thing. So, but mine were all stainless, so I didn't have a massive oxidation like you
or
did.
corrosion. Yeah.
You got away lucky.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, what keep going, man. Y'all are doing great. I'm not hardly having to ask any questions. So,
we're just working a little bit more and more, trying to, checking out the big ticket items. One we literally just finished this week was rewiring the whole boat.
All of it. We ripped out how many pounds of wire?
Like 5 trash bags of wire. I mean, literally every single wire got replaced.
All of it.
So AC, DC is completely done. And in doing that too, we had 4 100 amp hour AGMs that we liked a lot. They were fine, and we had no problem with it. Came with the boat, and only about 3 years old. However, my mom is Mason 43. We just actually took it down the coast around Point Conception, and her lead acids were about 7 years old. So we did the little swapperoo.
They were a little dead.
Yeah, gave her my AGMs, and her and I have always wanted to consider about going to lithium, and this was just the time. So we were like, all right, we're doing it. So we pulled the trigger, and we actually building our own lithium battery with cap cells and making our own using our own BMS. Anyways, we'll have about 380 amp hours of power usable to 80%, which is incredible.
Yeah. Chris says we very liberally. He will be building the batteries. I will stand by and try to understand what's happening, but he will be the one who's taking on that project. And same with the wiring. I am so impressed. He pulled out literally every wire out of the boat, and we thought this job was going to be a lot more daunting than it was, just because rewiring it. But when you rip out literally everything and start over,
it's a lot easier than trying to fix things. Yeah.
And trying to figure out where wire leads and things like that. So Chris actually got it done in a reasonable time considering everything that's been going on in life right now. But that project is checked off the list.
We don't have our batteries yet, but they are ready. Once we get them, all we got to do is drop them in and hook them up. So all the lines are right there ready to go. So we're ready to go.
Well, I can't wait for a video on that one.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to see a good video on you building the batteries because, you know, like you guys, you know, I've got the sailing bug, the boating bug. You know, mine's I've grown up with it and primarily been racing all my life. You know, I've done enough long distance trips and sailing around Cape Horn and, you know, big long jaunts that I understand offshore sailing and I'm not worried about it. But now that I'm getting older, I'm not enjoying the racing quite as much. I mean, I still love it. I mean, trust me, I'm going to be racing this weekend. So, you know, I'm still racing all the time and I love it. But I do want to experience more of the cruising stuff. And watching you guys do all of this and me being a boat worker, it just motivates me to want to do more and to get a boat and rebuild it, you know, the way I like to. So watching you guys, I don't know how many people you've motivated. I mean, have y'all heard that a lot, that you motivate people and they're going to jump in because of you? Or,
you know, we get messages every once in a while on Instagram. Chris probably doesn't hear it as much because he doesn't really handle social media stuff. He's always with his head down into, you know, either editing or in the bilge working on something. But occasionally we do get messages like that. Either people who are really interested and have questions, or people who are like, you've inspired us to do this. And then I respond with, that means so much to us. Here's some pointers that you can learn from, that, you know, mistakes that we made.
Gone through.
Yeah, because I think that's the big thing. And especially with YouTube sailing channels, so much of it is romanticized, where people get this idea. And that's what actually any travel channel, people are so enamored with this beautiful lifestyle that they don't really calculate out the parts that aren't so glamorous, like working in the bilge for 8 hours a day, being covered in boat sludge and fiberglass and being itchy and all of the not so nice things.
There's also a lot to say, like, yes, that, but there's also a lot of people, I think, that don't think that they can necessarily handle projects on a boat, like, no matter what. And I think it all comes back down to your confidence level. And me being, I mean, literally, we've done everything on this boat. I mean, the only thing we've had done by someone else was to get it lifted out of the water and to shoot it. That was it.
Yeah.
So, like, that was it. I mean, we've done literally everything.
And if we could have done it, we would have.
Yeah, yeah. So all I'm trying to say is like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn at all. What I'm trying to say is that it's the mindset you go into with like a project is that if someone else can do it, at least someone else can do it, I can do it. And hopefully, sorry, let me cut you off. But yeah, hopefully as well. I don't know. Who knows? The verdict's still out on that.
Chris has a natural knack of picking things up just instantly. So he's
but
like,
a lot of research goes
off,
behind that too. And that was what I was trying to get into, is that we've done a lot of stuff on this boat, but never, like, I think I'm a really good fiberglasser. I think I'm a pretty good electrician. I'll never ever stop, or, you know, if someone's trying to give me advice, I'll never stop them and say, no, I got to figure it out. Like, I will always take more advice, because there's so many different things that go on a boat. Like, I'm
different ways to do things.
And I never think I'm never like, don't take the, the mindset that you know everything, because people have done the same thing. And I'm sure there's a lot to gain from that.
Even in the 2 years of owning our boat, we've learned a lot. When we first bought it, we thought we were going to oil everything. We're like, oh yeah, oiling. Oiling the wood. It's so much easier than varnishing. And in this hot weather, we learned very quickly that the oil is a lot more maintenance, because it burns off. If you did enough and like layered it enough, it probably would last. But for us who are busy doing,
we're also suckers, and we love the look of varnished teeth. So yeah.
So I mean, like, things like that, you learn, you adapt, you move on. But
I'm looking at a boat that has like almost no wood down below. So yeah.
It's something you gotta live to, I guess.
Yeah, that's another thing, is when you're looking at boats, you have to understand what you're looking at. If you're looking at something with a lot of teak, you have to make the decision if you want to keep the teak or if you want to paint it or replace it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you see this mantle behind my head, and the wood paneling, and all my doors and everything was wood. This whole house was basically wood, except for a little bit of sheetrock. I've done everything I can to get rid of wood. And
See?
growing up in the house I lived in as a kid, it was all wood, and I'm like, I'm so sick of wood. Yeah, no.
It's a love-hate relationship for some people. We have friends that are absolutely against teak, although that hurts us emotionally a little bit.
Yeah.
It's personal preference, and that's fine as long as you don't paint over teak. Sometimes we see people who do that, and it kills me a little bit inside. It's like, just replace it.
And we've done
Just
like
replace
in
it.
some areas where it just doesn't make sense. Like we used to have teak perimeters around all of our port lights on the outside.
Yeah.
And like not only is that just not as strong as something that would be metal, but it's just a pain to like keep up on the varnish and like stuff like that. So
And
we've changed in areas where it makes sense to like, no, I don't need wood there. Like obviously we'll do G10 or we'll do stainless or bronze, or we always try to go bronze, but we usually can't afford it.
What are they called? The cabin sides,
the cabin sides, actually right here to be all teak, and then we change it to be white because it just makes the boat look a little bit bigger. I think.
And the teak paneling was
very dark.
so rotted out.
It was rotted.
It was disgusting from the port lights leaking. So we had to get rid of that, and we're really happy with it. Plus, it doubles as a dry erase board. Come to find out.
There you go. So then
that's
you
pretty
can
cool.
write your quick notes on what you need to do on. All right, here, don't forget this.
Yep, we have on a few occasions.
All right. Well, great. All right. So let's talk about. All right. I know we've mentioned you're going to Alaska. Where to after that? Then you're just going to run south. You head to Hawaii. Where's your next plan?
So we're actually newly revised plan.
Yeah.
Very
Plans
newly
change a lot.
Very newly revised. We have. At first, last time we talked to you, I think we talked about just going straight up the coast to Alaska.
Yeah.
We pivoted again, and we decided
back to our original plan.
Going back to the original plan, we're going to sail north to San Francisco. From San Francisco, we're going to sail to Hawaii. From Hawaii, we're going to sail to Alaska, and then once we're in Alaska, we're going to enjoy all of Alaska for as long as we can before it gets freezing but cold. Then we're going to start sailing down the coast to warmer waters and see how long we can go. So that is the new plan.
The new plan, yes.
The reason that changed is that we were a little bit intimidated. I mean, we wanted to do Hawaii at first, and then we got intimidated, and then we're like, well, let's just sail the boat. So we are going to still sail the boat a lot before then and now. We're going to go, like she said, all the way up the coast, up to San Francisco, but we also want to spend a lot of time out by where we are right now.
And the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
So do a lot of short cruises, shake down the boat, and then make the crossing, and hopefully do it well. And the reason being that everyone that I've talked to across the board says, do not bash up the coast. Like, you will not like yourself. The boat will hate you.
You'll hate the boat.
You'll hate the boat. You'll hate it. So
yeah, another really cool thing is the other night, Chris and I finally pulled out the charts, because Avocet came with a bunch of old charts and World Cruising Guide and things like that. So we pulled everything out to start looking at routes. And when we unfolded the map, there were already notes on it. So Avocet has already been to Hawaii with the previous owner, and it was complete with all of the notes, all of the soundings.
Day by day, it was their dead reckonings every, at 1200 or 1200, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, there you go. So every single day, it was cool. Like the first day, it was like, we saw whales today. It was beautiful. And then like the second day, it was like oven fire. God, that felt terrible. And like the third day, it's like,
spinnaker pole broke.
Yeah, rounded up. Jesus, we almost died.
It was pretty funny. And then something really cool is that the previous owner's grandson, although the previous owner did pass away shortly after we bought Avocet, which was really sad because there's so many things I would have loved to ask him, but his grandson found us on social media and started following us, and we've been talking to him, and I posted that picture of the map online, tagged him in it just because I thought and he's, oh yeah, I remember that trip. You were there?
Yeah.
Because he was really young. I mean, he's almost our age, somewhere near our age. So he was a really young kid. I'm like, do you remember anything? Do you have any pictures? Please send them to us. I want to see it. And he's like, I remember the oven fire. It smelled very bad. But,
so that's, it's funny that you found those logs. I've done a couple big long trips on boats where they're 18 days and stuff like that, and I was always one of the watch captains or something, and I'd write down the log and do the dead reckoning and do the navigation. And I know we had one group of one of our we had 3 watches, and one of our watches they couldn't navigate, they couldn't drive very well, they couldn't trim the sails very well, and every time you'd wake up and you come on deck, it's like, geez, just like, fuck. Okay, we're 50 miles north now. How did we do? And so you figure everything out. And I remember, I don't know who's reading that logbook, but I just remember going, watch 3 screwed up again. We lost 40 miles. The sail is now shredded. The anchor locker's full of water. They didn't check. I'm just like, whoever's reading this logbook is probably like, what is going on? But
that's crazy.
I'll leave little sarcastic comments and those things. They're great.
We actually just took my mom's boat down the coast from San Francisco to here in Ventura, and we did the trip around Point Conception, and we were all ready. I just spent like a whole week up on that boat redoing the whole wiring and
taking a pause from our own project
to work on that boat.
Yeah.
It's always something.
Anyway, so we get the boat all dialed in. Got life raft, everything, ditch bags, anything and everything that could go wrong. We were ready for it. Push off, and we had no wind. Nothing.
It was dead the whole way. We were we were so nervous for Point Conception, and when we got it, we switched watch with our friends, and we slept through the whole thing. We didn't get to experience.
We had
anything.
literally the only amount of sailing that we had when we were going around Conception, and I had actually put up all the sail. It's a nice cutter.
Everything up, man.
Everything's up, full main. I mean, everything. We were doing like 7.5 knots with the motor, but still, we were still like sailing, sort of.
Yeah.
And anyway, we passed off the wheel, and it was like, we're sailing finally. Like, good luck. And then all of a sudden, on our next watch, we came back up on deck, and all the sails are back down and no wind. I'm like, God dang it! That didn't last.
Like, how long did that last? Like 5 minutes after you left.
But anyway, it was cool. So I started while I was on the boat. I kind of like organized stuff, and I found all the old logs from my parents when they bought the boat back in 1981. I think is when they bought the boat, or 89. No, 1989. Anyways, and it had the log from when my dad took the boat up the coast, and it was just cool. It was just day by day we got to read what he did.
It's really cool.
He probably said, "This is the worst trip ever. I'm getting the boat pounded to death. I'm dying. I don't like it." Yeah.
Basically.
That's basically
that tells you, okay, I need to go to Hawaii first.
The whole log up, it was so funny to read. And mind you, everyone who wrote in that logbook, there was 3 different people, all of their handwriting was equally horrible. So Chris and I were reading these logs together at the same time, because one of us wouldn't read a word, and then the other person would pick it up.
It would like popcorn read almost. It was funny.
It was reading. It was
comical. And it was cool to see them. It was cool to read all of that, because that was way before GPS and all that stuff. So it was all like, no what's it called? No
chart
sight
plotters or anything.
With no chart plotter, but like we were relying on radar. Jesus, this is terrifying. And it's like, I hear a boat, but I can't see it. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Especially when they got near the bay, it was like heavy fog. And,
but it was cool. They were writing down their Latin longs the whole way up, and it was cool.
Yeah.
It was good to see.
Well, I got a question. Since you guys are getting so experienced playing with these boats and rebuilding them and really living the lifestyle, what do you have for people that are getting into it, that want to do the same thing you're doing?
Patience, communication, and being flexible with your ideas of what it's going to be like. There's been many times where one of us has gotten frustrated because a project's taken longer than we thought it would, or we weren't able to do something because the weather changed. And being able to adapt to those situations is critical, because
that's sailing.
It's sailing, and it's really important. Also, if you're going to be doing it with your partner, communication really is key. It's a small space, and you can't hate the person you live with. That's that. Luckily, Chris and I grew up as best friends, and we've been together for 8 years, married for 3.
We have our moments, but
we talk them out. It'll be like little bickering back and forth for maybe like 10 minutes if it's really bad.
Yeah.
One of us will go out on deck, take the cat, and then we'll come back inside. We're like, okay, I'm frustrated. Let's talk about it. And then we move on.
And then I guess my recommendation to someone is I think everybody who's looking at a boat, we were the same way. When I remember talking to my brother when we were looking at a boat, and And I had this mindset of like, well, I can get like a project boat, you know, and I can put little into it and I can get like this sweet ass boat, and we'd be set, man, with no money. Like we can like totally skate by and blah, blah, blah. I think everybody feels that way when they're looking at, when we have friends that talk to us all the time that are looking at project boats and thinking that that price that they're seeing is going to be it plus maybe $5,000.
Yeah.
And it's like,
No.
like like you need to be realistic when it comes to like yards costs this much, paint costs this much,
Shipping costs
this much. You know, hours by labor, especially if you're going to hire people out, it gets real expensive.
Even if
like,
you have a job, if you're doing it all yourself,
Yeah.
you have a job, you have a budget.
And,
Okay,
like,
I'm going to
time.
be doing this at night. Can I do these projects at night in the marina or anchorage I'm in? Things like that you really have to work with. And for project boats, there's no such thing as a free boat. There's no such thing as a cheap boat. The cheaper they are, the more expensive they turn out to be.
Yeah. And like, so again, like the amount of money that you will have to put into a project boat to get it to the point where you could have probably just bought it in like an okay turnkey condition is pretty true. I mean, like we've done everything ourselves, and yeah, we're coming in probably under what we could have bought this boat for in
Brand
really
new.
good shape. Oh, that's definitely
Yeah.
brand new. But anyways, in really good shape. But again, it's taken 2 years. It's taken all the knowledge I have to throw at it. It's taken and it's not even including all the tools.
Thousands of hours.
Yeah, thousands of hours. Luckily, I had all my own tools. I mean, like those are those
Blood,
things that you need to
sweat,
like think
and
about.
lots of tears, but we're here. And the good thing about it is you have to maybe not fully enjoy, but you have to have some kind of appreciation for the work you're doing.
Yeah.
Chris appreciates every learning experience. I appreciate Chris having the patience to teach me every learning experience. And if you can't appreciate it or you have no desire to learn, then a project boat is not for you. A boat you may need to question further.
Yeah.
And do really hard
even
research.
brand new boats, we have friends here in this marina with like a literally brand new boat.
Beautiful
And I'm-
2018 Beneteau.
and I'm just-
brand new boat.
I'm staggered of how much work they still have to, you know, I mean, like there's
Yeah.
still so many projects they do, and it's like it goes to my point is like no boat is project free. Every boat will have to be something will have to be done.
You have to pick what projects you want to do.
Yeah.
So another good tip is don't settle on the first boat you see.
Yeah.
Ever. The first boat that we actually put an offer in on was a Silica 36, and it was a project boat. It was a smoker boat. There was tar on the ceiling. I had never actually seen it. Chris
I had a Volvo.
Chris went for it.
It had a Volvo, what's it called? Something drive. And the whole transmission was cracked in half. The rig was like a wood and original teak decks, but it was $14,000, and I was like ready to pounce. And we had an offer and everything in. We were like going for it.
And the
it
broker
didn't-
sold it out from underneath us.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that. We should send him a thank you letter for being so slimy. But he really saved us there. So don't settle on the first boat you see. Do your research. Put together a list of things you need in a boat. Need as in like cannot live without, and things that you can compromise
And there's
on.
things too. I know you want to talk to, because this is fun to talk about. But like there's certain boats that you can, like, you're never gonna make money on a boat for sure, but there's certain boats, certain categories of boats that you can put money into and know that it will hold its value looking in the future. Meaning when I say that, these really heavy displacement boats that are laid up, you know, like the hull is 1.5 inches thick, there's teak everywhere. People nowadays logistically cannot build these boats like they did back in the 80s. It just takes too much. Like this boat, if you were to build it today, it would have cost $1 million. You know what I mean? Like
they
there's
don't make
so much
teak
wood.
this way. The teeth, I mean, they don't have.
It's gone. The
there's
teak is
no
gone.
old growth teeth, especially Chris's mom's boat. That is all old growth Burmese teak. Correct? It's just thick teak, but I mean, we still have teak paneling.
This is all veneer. Hers is all, you know,
thick.
1.5 inch strips throughout the whole boat.
So it's a different building standard for sure, and things like that hold value, which is why you see Hans Christians traditionally hold value, just like the Masons, the
Hinkley's, and the Tianas, and all these boats that are built that way.
Such a following behind them is because people who are boat nerds will go after those any day. I mean, even if you just enjoy sailing, then anything's fair game.
And like I say that, so like if you were to buy like a Catalina or a Cal or an Ericsson or something, Ericsson's pretty good. Anyways, all these boats, they're production boats. Don't ever think that they're going to be, even like it's hard to put the money into something like that and expect that you'll be getting something that you would originally put into it, because they will depreciate. It just because they're still making them. You know what I mean? Like that's the problem. Anyways, that's my little.
Even
thing.
though they're still making them, though, we had such a hard time finding a Catalina 36. My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been looking at tons of boats, and my situation seems like it always changes, kind of like everyone else's, and I need a bigger boat than what I was planning on. Now that I'm getting more kids moving in with me and things like that. So, my 45-foot boat range is now in the 55 to 60-foot boat range to fit a family. So, yeah, so I'm looking for bigger and bigger boats. Now, I was offered 2 free boats this week. They're both in the 50-foot range. Yeah, they're both free. I haven't seen either of them, but I can already tell you what shape they're in. I already know I need a bigger bank account to fix them up. But yeah.
Sometimes people get lucky. Sometimes they fall into a situation where they'll get a free boat, or a marina will be selling a leaned vessel that's in relatively good shape for like $1, and it's just a quick cleanup and system run through. But sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, that's different. When you buy a boat for $1 versus whatever. I've seen that happen, and you're right. Maybe you can get away with skating by on something like that, but it's pretty uncommon.
And those stories are pretty great too. I love those stories, but
well, I've got one of those as well. But the boat, it needs all the wiring. It's kind of like yours, it needs headliners, it needs tons of, the deck is solid, the bottom's solid. I could pick the boat up, throw it in the water, and it's good to go. But there's no engine, no generator. The sail's been sitting in the sun for 10 years uncovered. The boat is shot. And I'm like, oh, that's just such a great boat. But.
And like all those things you just listed too, like the engine, the sails, all of those things.
They're the big ticket.
Have a price, and they're big ticket. And it's like, well, that's what it costs. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter if you know how to work on a boat or not. Like, sails cost what they cost. A new diesel engine costs what it costs. Like, those are just hard to come by. You know what I mean? There's no getting around that.
Yeah, an engine's $10,000. Sails are going to be 15, 20 grand minimum, 30 grand. And all the lines are going to be $5,000. It's like, okay. And then I can start looking at working on the interior to make it nice.
Oh God, yeah.
So then you're like, all right, there's 40 grand real quick gone, and before you even, yeah. So, like I said, there's a lot of things going on out there that a lot of people don't quite realize. At least I've been in the business and playing with boats long enough to know a free boat will hurt. It will hurt. So. All right, well, listen, this video is starting to get a little long, and I know you guys have more electrical to do or more cleanup to do, or you probably just want to take a shower or something. So, listen, I want to thank you for coming on again. And for those of you guys that aren't aware of this, I did an interview with them about a month ago, and the audio completely crapped out. I'm praying this works. We have no issues. Keep your fingers crossed. My toes are crossed. Everything's crossed. But
knock on some teeth.
Yeah, knock on teeth.
Yep. About the hardest thing I got. All right, so once again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Everybody, go check them out. They are a great young couple. They've got a YouTube channel, Sailing Vessel Avocet. Look them up. They are really fun to watch, very entertaining. The amount of work they do and the quality they do it with is just great. You get to see her stuck in a hole. Of a little lazarette hole trying to figure out how to paint. That was a good one. You can always see him just covered in dust and playing with something, and he works all night, literally like all night, like 30 hours in a row. So it's good to watch these guys. Good, young, hardworking couple. And with that, thank you guys. We'll be in touch. I'll see you again soon. And with that, over, out. Oh, yeah, don't forget, like, subscribe. Go to subscribe to their channel. Subscribe to this one. God knows I need it. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Over, out, and bye-bye.
See ya.